My name is Bernard Neuville, and I was born and raised in Door County, originally out of Sturgeon Bay. And I come from a family of 6 kids, four boys and 2 girls. And my dad was a cheesemaker, and he worked for the highway department. And I went to school in Sturgeon Bay, high school. And when the war started, I lost 3 of my closest friends that went into service, and they lost their lives. And at that time, a lot of the guys were volunteering to go in, and a couple of my friends that I was in school with signed up in the Marines. And so I didn't swim. I was the only one in the family that couldn't swim, so I wasn't going to go in the Navy, but I ended up aboard ship all the while I was in the Marines. So anyway, and I talked my mother into signing up for me, and that was the only way you could get in. And of course, that was an episode in itself, but she finally consented, and I enlisted down in Milwaukee. And then they sent me back for a while until they got a process of other fellows going in to form a unit to go down to Great Lakes. And then from Great Lakes we were shipped to San Diego. And I enlisted in 43, but I didn't go back, didn't get called back in actually in the first part of 44. Well, the basic training, we went through boot camp there. And that was most or less the process of learning how to march and the whole 9 yards and ability and everybody. So that was the whole process was to learn how to obey in the whole 9 yards. And just before one of the last inspections we had, they went by me, and all of a sudden one of the officers and one of the DIs, drill instructors, looked and saw peach fuzz on my face, and he came back. He said, "Did you shave today?" I said, "I never shaved in my life." He says, "What did you say?" He says, "You go down to my tent right now, and you wait for me." So I went down to his tent and waited for him. He came in, he grabbed a hold of an old rusty razor, and he rubbed it on the side of the steel bunk. He says, "Okay, now dry shave." And I don't mean under the lip and just the chin. The whole works. Boy, my skin burnt for days. I could have shot that guy. Never forgot that one, I'll tell you. I shaved after that. They gave us, after the training, we got leave to go home for 10 days. And it took 3 days going and 3 days coming back. So I had a day and a half, not quite 2 days at home with my parents. And then when coming back, they shipped us back, and we ended up in Camp Pendleton for our advanced training. And we were stationed, that was a Santa Margarita ranch. It's full of sheep. And we were based in a campsite that was called Little Tokyo. And that was where we got our basic training out of. It was a nice area, except for when the wind blew, you had sheep and they were all over your food. And usually 9 times out of 10 you were eating, there was a breeze. They were in a hurry to get us replacements, to get them trained to form that division. The CEOs and the drill instructors and guys that were PFCs and corporals that came back, they ended up being our leaders, and the sergeants that were over before. But they thought they were going to stay back here, but they formed the 5th Marine Division, so we went right back overseas. Yeah, we went to Big Island, Hilo, Hawaii, and that's where we got debarked from there. And then we took us up to the ranch, Parker Ranch, that was up on the hill, up on the mountain. And that's where we trained. 6 months before I went into Iwo, I turned 18. There was 4 of us that changed to 18 at the same time. But most of the oldest guys in our unit was about 21. Well, then we boarded ship, and we rendezvoused outside of Pearl Harbor, and then the convoy took off, and then we went on the way there aboard ship. Well, you got indoctrinated about the maps and the whole thing, but there was no Iwo Jima's name on it until we got, damn near there, I guess. It was crowded. One on top of the other. You listen to the radio. That's about all you could do is listen to radio, and then they'd have you doing your exercise aboard deck. But I went over I got on an AKA, and that was it was a little bit faster ship, and it was more modern, and we had a 3-inch gun on the tail end of it. Well, they moved us off that ship, and they put us on a landing craft. We went off the side of the boat on nets. Well, it was all right if that landing craft wasn't bobbing up and down. If you were it was a little bit more calm. But boy, when that baby was bobbing up and down, you're hanging on that thing, and if you miss that, your chances of getting squished between the two boats, And thankful that the ones I did never was. The sergeant was the guy that really laid it into you. The lieutenants, they were like second command compared to those little sergeants. Just keep your rear end down. Because he says, you crawl on the ground, he says, you make sure you keep as low as you can, because that sticks up, and that movement, they can spot whatever's moving around out there, whether you're in the grass or in dirt or anything, And boy, that was the best advice, because of the fact that, boy, you wanted to stay close, because I saw one of the guys, well, in fact, one of them that had his got hit in the head, and his brains was blown out of my helmet, was up too high. He caught that. If he'd have been down a little bit lower, he would have survived. I went in on the 23rd. That's 4 days. The landing was on the 19th. It was the 4th day, and that was when they raised that flag. When we hit the beach, well, that's when the Japanese ash can. We didn't know it was an ash can. All here's that sucker coming in, and then when it exploded, and it took out some other units, and one that landed right next to us, was close enough, because that thing was the size of an ash can. When it exploded, it covered a lot of ground, and that took out that one whole boat with everybody in it. And then there was some of the guys that were in my landing craft that weren't down low enough, and they got a lot of the shrapnel, and that's where they got it. There was nothing you could do until when the ramp went down. You had to get the hell out of there. You had to move as fast as you possibly could. It's red, and and it was soaked in, and then your boots, and then you got almost at the top of your boots, and your pants legs were, and it dried up later on when you get in the sun. But it's terrifying, the fact that you could see all this in the bodies and everything. This is what really froze you. I could understand where a man would get frozen in his tracks, because of the fact that it's so, the shock of it, just the witness. What can you do? You're almost stunned. It's a miracle that you can, get the courage to move. But you didn't have much choice. You had to move, otherwise you'd have been laying there too. So it's pretty hard to explain how terrifying it is, because of the fact that so much of that stuff is being exploded around you, and it doesn't seem like it quits. Once in a while it slows down, but it's a constant thing. When you hear command, somebody hollers, move, don't sit there, move, and we thought we were going to stay on the beach and move equipment or help handle the supplies, and that was our job. We were going in there as a replacement draft to a beach party. It was a beach party that handled the equipment to get the stuff up to the front, the boxes of ammunition and grenades and the whole 9 yards. But they hollered, move up, and you just forgot everything. You just start crawling, and crawling in that lava, that volcanic ash is was like trying to crawl in a grain bin, you know. Some of them were already up where they had a better footing, and where the ground was a little like towards Mount Suribachi, the ground was a little bit more firm. And then some of them were lucky enough to have tracks, extra tracks or the steel sheeting that they used for landing airfields. Those guys that were lucky enough to get some of those tanks up. But it was a while, and then when some of the tanks that did get on, then they ran over a bomb that was buried by the Japanese, and it blew the bottom out of it, you know, and then that just sat there in the way of another one. So then you had to find another path around them. And this is what happened at the beach. When we went in, it was so cluttered with boats that were blown apart and wrecks and stuff. The beach was covered like a junkyard. You know, a lot of them were on top of each other. So you know, it made it pretty hard to. And then you had to move up to the front in order to be a replacement of ones that were coming back wounded, or ones that were killed. So that's where we were, replacements. So that we got up over the top of the first airfield, and then you automatically turn, because it wasn't that wide. You had automatically turn to go towards securing the airfield. You seen it happen with that small flag, you know. Everybody was pretty quiet down, you know, and of course there was still fighting in the background. But like Bob said, you know, that was a sight to be seen, you know. And then you put up the bigger one, that was even better yet, you know. But then it didn't stop. The fighting didn't stop. We moved out, and you started to move out, and when you're moving in that lava, that's sand, black stuff, you know, and you had to crawl. You take 2 steps forward and you go back 3 steps, and you start all over again, you know. And you crawl most of the time, because because the firing was so heavy that it'd be a miracle if you get it up there without crawling out as much as you can, you know. And it's pretty hard crawling in that stuff when you're cradling a rifle. Well, and not only that, you know, it's hotter than hell in the daylight, and daytime, and then at night it cooled off. The air was cold, but then you dove in one of those holes that was full of sulfur, and it got so warm in there that you have to sit on your backpack. Well, you know, the shells, everything is going off and around, and you're just hoping that you're not getting picked off like Bob did with that shrapnel flying around like that, you know. So when you made a dive for something, if you're fortunate enough to go any distance at all, you dove for the first hole you've seen, because if you got ahead 10 feet, you were pretty lucky to get that one, and as you went on, you know. And that's the bad part of it, is the fact that you didn't have time. Most of the time you just dove in there to make sure you got in this, you know. And then sometimes you die in there, and there's some dead Japs in there, and some guys that were waiting for corpsmen to come in, you know, and they were wounded, you know, and there's a lot of blood around when you dive in a hole with some guys, you know, that are waiting for corpsmen that did a lot of bleeding, you know. There's a lot of them that are dead, and then a lot of them were being hauled back for a burial later on when they bulldozed the trench and put them in temporarily. Then they had to move them again. Well, if you stayed down, you know, and it's like the first 3 nights, I don't think I slept more than a couple hours, you know, and then you huddle underneath coverage. If you had a poncho, you'd cover it up with that in case there's a lot of shelling and there's stuff falling. Then you got the sounds of the Marines firing back, so they're crossing each other, you know. We were fighting an unseen enemy, you know. They were all underground, and the fact that they were underground, and you never know where they were covered, and they didn't have to aim. All they have to do is shoot, and they were going to get somebody, one way or another. If you were exposed, you were going to get some, and some of those shells, you know, that hot metal that rains down on you.